Welcome to No Way Out. Today's guest is one of the creators of the Manifesto for Agile Software Development and was voted one of the all-time top 150 iTechnology heroes in 2007.
Someone else voted me one of the top 42. I'm going up in the world.
You're going up higher? All right. Not only that, he is the creator of Heart of Agile. We may talk about that today. And it's our good friend. There it is on a coffee cup.
If there's any video involved, that's the...
No, we have it. So welcome to the show, Alistair Cockburn. How are you doing, sir?
Thank you. Thank you for pronouncing my name right. I was all set to correct you. It's Cockburn. There's a Scottish clan, the Cockburn clan, and somehow they got people to stop pronouncing that CK. Don't ask me why, how. But yeah, we got the whole clan thing going, kilts and everything.
I actually have a kilt from the Navy, so
maybe
no, we're not going to do anything like that.
We have a registered plaid in the Marine Corps too.
Yeah. Oh yeah, of course. But of course. Yeah. And my son, one of my sons decided he was tired of dealing with the CK, and he started calling himself writing Coburn.
Yeah.
I said you can do that, but then you can't wear the kilt anymore.
Nice. So Alistair Cockburn, born in Denver, Colorado, right? Went to school in Ohio. Does that sound right?
Let me, if you will, I'll just give you the list.
Sure.
Spend time on it. So my parents were English, and then they dropped kids around the world, and I got dropped in Denver, Greeley, Colorado, just outside Denver. Lived there for like a year, so I know nothing about.
I grew up in Greeley.
Are you kidding me? No.
It smells really bad, right?
I have no idea. I was left there for.
Oh yeah. I'm from Greeley.
Are you really from Greeley?
I'm really from Greeley.
That's amazing, man.
Yeah.
So I went back there as a teenager, like age 18, and my mother had me meet her next door neighbor, and like that's all I know of Greeley is I drove in, said hi to the neighbor, and drove out. So I know
that's all you need to know of Greeley.
Yeah, that's good. So people think, they go, but where are you from? But where are you from? Really? But where are you from? And then they give up and they go, well, where were you born? And I go, Denver. And they go, like they understand anything. So my dad was a doctor, and then he got posted. He worked for the UN, the World Health Organization. So he got posted in Sri Lanka. So I spent the next 2 years in Sri Lanka. Then he came back to the US. Then he got posted in Bangladesh. So I spent the next 2 years in Bangladesh. Then after, so I was in the expat British thing in the Indian stuff right there with all that international. Came back, and the coldest winter of my life, we went back from Bangladesh to Baltimore. There's me at age 6 or 7 encountering American culture for the first time, and a Baltimore winter, and I froze. All I know was my only memory is just being cold. From there to Cincinnati, I went to grade school, middle school in Cincinnati, then to Detroit. I went to Mumford High School. Then I took a year in Sweden as an exchange student. Then college at Case Western Reserve. I went to Scotland for a year in college. I came back. I got a job in Utah. Then I got tired of that, so I went and got a job in Switzerland for 7 years. And then I came back, and I got tired of that, so I went and got a job in Norway for a bit. And then 10 years ago, I gave up my house completely and just went around the world for 6 years. So where am I from is a tough question. It's all mixed up. I'm international. For me, national borders are an accident of history. They have no meaning to me.
Yeah, likewise. Being in the military, serving in the military, when people ask that question, there's a place I was born. There's many places I lived, but where are you from?
There's no from. There's a wonderful song for anybody who's connected to Latin America or speaks Spanish. It's a singer called Facundo Cabral, and he has a song. It has a line, and I won't say it in Spanish for your listeners, but it goes, I'm not from here. I'm not from there. I have no age. I have no future. Happiness is the color of my identity. I heard that, and my head exploded, and I said, that's me, especially that last line. But I'm not from here. I'm not from there. I have no age. I have no identity. That's for people like us, right? It's just like, here we are. Here's a person.
Yeah, it gives us perspective. It gives us, and that's probably what helped you with your work in software development. Right?
It turns out to be core to my consulting, because all of my consulting is what I call micro touch therapy. There's chiropractors that snap bones and things, and there's people who do the micro touch. I'm the micro touch consultant, and I worked out it's from this background that I've always been a visitor in a culture, any culture even the U.S. I'm still kind of a visitor here because I came here at age 7, right? Effectively.
Yeah.
And so if I go to a company, an organization, it's not my job to change them. They didn't go bankrupt, so something's working. They have a culture. You live with it, and there's only so many changes you can do as one person. So I'm always looking for what's the lightest touch. Forever, it's been that way. My whole history in consulting is what's the least change you can make so that people can do better in whatever, right?
Right, right.
And all of my software development methodologies are built that way, and all of my interventions in companies are built that way. And that's like deep down inside me. I can't do it a different way because of that travel background.
Yeah. So today I want to bring up a topic that I think you tweeted out in 2000, and that's the connection to John Boyd's OODA loop and Agile. And before we do that, I want to go back to a conversation that you and I had in Portugal and kind of set the scene there. There's Dave Snowden's at the table. You're at the table. There's a few other folks there. And you start asking me about my background in the military, and in particular, if I was familiar with Carl Weick. Carl Weick, who is a thought leader in the space of sense making and high reliability organizing or high reliability theory.
He was a very, very influential sociologist, and I actually tried to get him to be the keynote speaker at the first Agile conference in 2003. Right. I didn't succeed, but he was my guy that was going to show our intention in the Agile industry.
So back in 2003, going back to this conversation, your point just now, my impression of the conversation is, had you been successful with getting Carl to speak at that, we may be on a different tragectory than we are now.
I believe so, 100%. I was so sad we went with an industry speaker, and the whole like Agile community locked on to lean startup money making, thing, as opposed to sociology sense making thing, which would have been my particular preference.
Right, and Carl Weick's work.
You mentioned OODA, and I don't think I knew about OODA in 2000. I might have by 2003, but it's possible. I was in a conversation with a friend and colleague, and he brought up OODA at the time, and I knew nothing about it. He says, military OODA stuff, right? Yeah. And I am so anti-military, or at least I was back then, and I'm going like, don't even say military at me, nothing. Military, nothing. Not the software stuff, right? And then years later, literally years later, I don't know, 6-8 years later, I finally got to reading John Boyd and the OODA thing, and I went, but this is what we're talking about. Like literally, you go like, this is it. Yeah, okay. So I'm in. So like, yeah.
No, that's a fantastic perspective. So when we, in the military, we don't go to OODA loop school. There's no, here's your 4 hours of OODA loop or anything like that. It's just assumed that you kind of learn it when hey, you must have been in the military, therefore you know the OODA loop. Yeah. That's not always true. And when you dive deeper into it and you start looking at what John Boyd put into it, things like mission command, lessons from the Toyota production system, neuroscience, cognitive science, philosophy, you start to see the value in it outside of warfare, right?
Oh yeah, totally. And by the way, I know he developed his brief so he could talk nonstop for 2 days or something. I'm a big fan of the short words, as you know. Like look at my mug. All I sell these days is these 4 words, right? And it's a podcast, you can't see it, but it says collaborate, deliver, reflect, improve. There are only 4 words. I added a short phrase there, right? Increase the quality of listening, stuff like that. Deliver something small and soon. Pause. The reflect is the pause, right? Give yourself a chance to breathe. Let all the neurons connect. Try to figure out where you are for a moment. Recenter yourself. And then make small improvement. So I only have 4 words, and so for me, the thing with the OODA, and I never remember which one's first, the observe or orient. Which one comes?
Yeah,
first?
observe.
Observe's first, orient second, right? Decide act, right? Yeah. I don't need his half day, 1 day, 2 day. He'll go into detail. I could go into details on this too, but I don't. Mm-hmm. And for me, just having the 4 words of OODA is all I need. Because you're talking about rate of observation, right? Rate of orientation, rate of feedback around that sucker. I'm happy you can bring in a million other details on yours. I can bring in a million details on mine. And most people are never going to get to those details. Like they get lost. The second concept you bring up, they're already gone, right? Yeah. So one of my lessons in the last 5 or 6 years is keep it simple, right? Keep the language, people. I have a thought. but I'm going to let you get to your next question before I just ramble on for 20 minutes.
No, we want you to ramble on.
Yeah,
So-
it's a lot like the way you're describing it. It's a lot like how I came into contact with John Boyd stuff in the military. You learn the simple things about it. You learn sort of the process, so to speak, in very clear, simple terms. But I had to leave the military to really understand the context and the power of what it was actually teaching me to function in complex domains effectively. But I didn't, they don't tell you that when you're learning it. You arrive at that conclusion later.
But I wanted to give you a chance to react to anything I say. So it's a conversation, right? And
of course.
And not just a blow.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's our format here. So we're all learning.
Sweet.
Three guys having coffee and the world's listening in and taking notes, hopefully.
Right. So I have to stop talking so they get your, like the interesting parts, the reaction in both directions. So thank you.
What do you think about this? So when you learn something simply, you learn the four things simply at first. What's your thought on the continued in-depth learning beyond in order to better understand something so simple?
I'm afraid you asked that because I give like hour-long lectures on that. I'm like start with four.
Us too.
Right. I have a tattoo here, which you probably can't see. It's Japanese. It's the word "ri," and so the Japanese in Aikido they have this concept of Shu Ha Ri. Mm-hmm. Shu means follow. Like you go to a dojo, you don't ask any dumb questions. They hit like this, you hit like this. You don't ask what if the guy's tall or short. You just copy. Right. And this is generalized over all learning. Everybody comes in the doorway, Mark Shu. They say, you get a new job, right, or a new assignment, and you say, how do I do that? Right. And then they tell you how to do it. They give you a technique. They give you a starter kit technique. Yep. And you don't ask any questions. You just see if you can copy the technique. It's universal, right? So that's Shu. Then you go to different, weapons and techniques, and that's Ha, and that means break. So you break from the tyranny of the rules of the Shu, and you pick up lots of things, but you're still kind of in a conscious competence state. And this last one, this tattoo that I've got here is Ri, and that means leave. That's like you leave the dojo, you're done. And it's a fully integrated experience. You don't even know what you do. You do it differently every time. You blend techniques. Invent. You don't know a thing because it's a whole body reactive thing. Well, there's a fundamental contradiction between Shu and Ri. Like the Shu people, and this is what I've been in my first book since 2000. I've been talking about this. Everybody comes in and they say, "How do I do that?" They're in Shu, and everybody who's Ri says, "But that doesn't always work, right? That's suboptimal. It's not the best." Blah 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 blah. And that confuses the Shu people. They just give me one thing I can't do. Even me. Yeah. You show me something new, and I'm going, I got it. And when they go, well, you don't have to do it that way. There's other ways. No, don't talk to me. Blah, blah. This one, right? Everybody. So that's the Ri is when I started traveling the world. I got the Ri tattoo because I left the dojo. I was traveling the world. Well, in 2015, and now we're really getting to your question. So Shu Ha Ri is critical. Everybody comes in the doorway, Mark Shu, right? And then I wanted to break that. Shu is a binding. It's a false binding. Everybody comes in, they learn a technique, they get attached to the technique, they argue, and now they can't let go of it.
Right.
Now I want Agile to be adopted by everybody in the world. We can't teach Shu level techniques to everybody in the world. That's what's gone with the Scrum Master stuff. They're teaching kind of a Shu level. That's good. They have 1 million students. That's good. But everybody's locked on Scrum. They don't know how to let go.
Right.
So this tattoo here is the Japanese word Kokoro, and it means heart or essence, the heart of something, the essence of something. And what I did with these 4 words that I'll again put up in the coffee cup, collaborate, deliver, reflect, improve, I was seeking to break away from this Shu nonsense. So I have words that are so easy and obvious, everybody can relate to them. Everybody knows how to collaborate. Like you don't want to, but you know how. Pick up the damn phone, walk down the hall, right? You don't want to, but it's there. Deliver's technical, but you got technical people. People don't practice reflecting, but it's not hard. So I can take these 4 words and go into any organization, any initiative, any company. I can go to a village in Patagonia. I can go into India, right? There's no words, just collaborate, deliver, reflect, improve.
So on Collaborate, are you using any lessons from team science to help people learn how to collaborate?
And I just got a word. I just have a word. See, I'm not going there. I'm not going there. This is the question. And this is the Mark's question, right? And you can unpack collaborate in 100 different ways, right? You can go down there, you can Shu Ha Ri every technique inside of there.
Right.
But at the end of the day, you know if you're collaborating or not, man.
Oh, yeah, yeah. So in the military, we had demo, do, teach, right? So in fighter aviation, the way we accelerate performance is through the art of debriefing and planning, executing, assessing, right? Yeah. But we also do demo, do, teach. So when I first heard Shu Ha Ri 8 years ago or 9 years ago in the Agile community, I was like, okay, that kind of reminds me of what we did in the military.
You know, those 3 levels, I chose those because I was talking about 3 levels to get reinvented this model with 5. That's great. That sounds like the same. The demo, do, teach sounds pretty similar, right? They're nice Western style words, levels of competence, right?
If I was explaining it to someone that doesn't have our background and they're just learning this, is it fair to say for Shu Ha Ri is to say follow the rules, break the rules, transcend the rules?
Yeah, that's right. Those are nice similar things. The thing with
I cheated, I looked it up, but I mean, I see exactly what it means.
Yeah. And transcend the rules. If you're in Japan, when they use Ri, they're talking about like it's in your blood, right? We're not just transcending the rules. It's in your blood. It's in your body. Yeah. It's right. It's fully all there. There is no higher level of performance than Ri.
So the foundational, the roots, the training, the traditions give us our core, and then we develop those, and then we transcend those by our own interaction in the various domains that we interact with.
Right.
Is that right?
And Shu is interesting. It's taken me years to work out that it's actually a trap. The moment you go a technique, they're trapped by the technique.
Yeah. Yeah.
So now.
Go. I was going to say, so when you say that people get trapped there, is that where just people just stick to the simplicity fundamentals without doing the extra thinking or learning?
I have a beautiful, simple example I do in my talks. I love doing this. Some big group of people, and I say there's 2 ways to tie shoelaces, basically, and the one is you make a half a knot, and then you make a bunny ear. I mean, you make a loop, right? And then you go round the tree and through the hole, and you pull the other loop out, right? Round the tree and through the hole. That's one way of doing a shoelace, right? And the other way is you make a half knot, and then you make 2 bunny ears, and then you make another half knot, and you pull it through, right? So, and the world is split as to which they do. So I ask people, and I go, raise your hand if you do the round the tree and through the hole. And typically people do that, and depending what country I'm in. And then I say, raise your hand if you do the 2 bunny ears method. It's a people raise their hand. I go, okay, now here's your challenge, right? Sometime today, try to do the other one. You will feel so uncomfortable. And I want you to understand that this is how hard it is to get anybody to learn a second technique. Most people will go through their lives never having tried the other technique. And it's harder than hell to get them to try the other technique.
Yeah.
That's the trap of Shu. I learned one, I'm done.
So since I'm a Marine and we have a lot of Marines that listen to this, so Shu Ha Ri, like I think of Shu is like my fundamental indoctrination where my correspondence to the old world is shattered and I'm given a new coding system and I'm drilled repeatedly.
That's it. When you're in boot camp or wherever, you do not have any questions. When they say, fold your socks this way, by God, you fold your socks this way, and you do not ask any questions.
And then I get out into my operating unit, out into the fleet, out into the field, and I learn from my peers and leaders and subordinates. And we start to pick up more things that we didn't learn at boot camp, but we learned through experience. And then Ri would be the third part where now I may be teaching others these sorts of
in every skill, people get to that Ri level, right? Now take anybody out in the field, right? The people who've been out in the field for a couple of years, they don't care what the boot camp people learn, right? They're in the field, something happens, they reach for whatever, they do a thing. There's a thing in firefighting. There was a very famous forest fire in Idaho. I'll pick a number 30 years ago, but it was
the Gulch.
Mann Gulch.
Gulch, yeah.
So there's a moment there where a guy invented a new fire fighting life-saving technique The fire was coming at him. He knew he was dead. He lit a counter fire to go toward the big fire.
Yep.
And he created a little dead patch, and he jumped in the dead patch, and the fire jumped over him. That's Ri, right?
Yeah.
You're in the field. You don't have time to think. Your body just goes, boom, you do a thing, right? So for your Marine people, that they've been out in the field, they laugh at the newcomers coming out with their little box of techniques, the little box, now we're going to do this. No, you don't have time. The people are like, it's popping. That's Ri.
Yeah. So let's apply this into coaching Agile inside organizations. Today, you get a Scrum Master that comes in, he learns Scrum, 35 questions, and now they're trying to apply Scrum across the board, right? Us that have some experience in coaching, we're going to show them some different techniques. So going back to what we learned in fighter aviation, we have procedures, we have methods, and then we have techniques. I'm going to show you a technique. Here's
Correct.
a standard, but here's a technique.
Right.
So we'll show techniques more often now when we're coaching in organizations. Is this what you're trying to do with the Heart of Agile as well? Is kind of
that
in here?
I'm breaking all of that, right? So I've been giving a lecture on Shu Ha Ri for 20 years now, and make use of the fact that the word Shu is spelled S-H-U in Japanese, but it sounds like shoe, like what you put on your feet.
Yeah.
And what I say is people get trapped in the shoebox.
Yeah.
Right? They get comfy and they make a nest there, and it's nice and comfy. They know this technique. They don't want to change it, right? So my job and your job is to kick people out of the shoebox. So I never denigrate anybody. I don't insult anybody by pretending they don't need to learn Shu. They will learn Shu. They have to learn Shu. They have to go to boot camp, right? But it's very important that I start right from the very beginning. They are going to have to leave the shoebox. They're going to have to leave the comfort of the known technique to pick up a second technique.
Right. And that's hard to do.
Or then they're comfortable. Yeah, totally. So now let's talk coaching, right? You go into an organization. Maybe they don't know Agile. They're afraid of Agile. They hate Agile. Maybe they're not in the biz at all. And you come at them with 36 new vocabulary words and some new words, right?
Yeah.
And they're terrified, and you say, do this technique. They're going to lock onto that so hard, and now you say, now, by the way, you don't have to do that, and they freak out, right?
Yeah.
So I only offer as a thought with the Shu Ha Ri, if you can bring something like this into your teaching, to warn them in advance, this is a starter kit technique. Mm-hmm. Shu Ha Ri, we're going to have to kick you out of the shoebox. You have to go out of that shoebox. If you stay in the shoebox, you'll be suboptimal forever. Because different teams have slightly different needs, and they're going to need to do slightly different things. And if they're all locked on what does a Scrum guide said, they're going to be way suboptimal. They're going to suffer. Mark, what you got?
When you understand Shu Ha Ri and you're teaching and learning it and people are becoming aware of it, one of the things I like to do with coaching is help people become more competitive. Is a lack or a deficiency in Shu Ha Ri, is that something that you look for? I would think that you look for that in a competitor where they're stuck in that shoebox and we've moved beyond the mastery. That's a great competitive target.
Yeah, I think I've never done this, but if you've got Marines, and Marines are wonderfully competitive, I love that stuff. Set it up as to who can find the more different ways to do the same thing. That's getting out of the shoebox, right? So that gets them thinking sideways. They can do other things. Now the problem is, of course, they then go to their colleagues, and the colleagues go, "I don't know what the hell you just did," because that's not in the script, right? Yeah. So the whole organizational transformation, adoption of ideas, somebody's adventuresome and figures out something better, and their colleagues won't listen to them. Like that's the standard problem we get.
Yeah. So let's move to that then, like the collaboration. How do you get colleagues to improve their harmony with each other?
Okay, 1 second. I if I could, I had a dangling thing I wanted to say about Shu Ha Ri just before we leave it, because you opened up another big topic right there. Obviously, a big topic.
I want the tattoo. I think the tattoo. The characters are phenomenal. That's pretty cool.
And all I do is I work from Kokoro is like radical simplification, right? If you only say the essence of it is this, just practice the basics forever. It's like wax on, wax off. Mr. Miyagi, wax on, wax off. He's the ultimate Kokoro teacher. Like just strengthen your basics forever, and everything will generate from that. So that's what I teach these days. This is the way I learn. But what I want to say about Shu Ha Ri I spent years trying to figure out there has to be another doorway, right? I can't live with the fact there's only one doorway and it's called Shu. And I found two other doorways, and the other dominant doorway in for learning is play.
Yep.
And play has got all kind of advantages, like when kids play or adults play and they find something new themselves, it anchors in their brain stronger than any technique you'll ever teach them. It's theirs. They own it.
Right. That experience.
Yeah, but they created it, right? So all the neurons in the brain, it's theirs. It's woven in. So it's a stronger anchor. And also they'll come up with different things, right? Which is cool.
Yeah.
The bad news is it's unpredictable how long it'll take them
yeah.
to come up with. So, we're on a timeline. We got to train all these people. So we go for the easy thing, which is Shu. But there is an alternative. It's called play. And so with me, with the Kokoro, I need another doorway that doesn't get trapped in Shu. And that's why I won't say more than these 4 words.
Right. So we use a lot of experiential learning activities, those play activities where they can actually reflect back and make the connection on what they just saw, what they experienced, and they have to make the connection to their day-to-day work.
And then it's their neurons building the links you just telling them.
And as coaches, we're there to reinforce it and help guide them to discover that. And it's what I found is that is it's a higher energy approach for us to do as coaches. It takes a lot of energy to create those conditions. And you see the participants expend a lot of energy as well, and they learn more from that play or experience than they can from anything else. Yeah, absolutely. There's no didactic approach. There's nothing like that. It's let's get you in an environment where you can learn and actually fail in front of others too.
Yeah. Well, and learning to fail in front of the others and learning and getting better from that is a whole separate topic. But let's go to the collaborate part. Yeah. So given we've established that there's not going to be a Shu thing, right? We're playing in the space. The reason, one of the things I learned from having these 4 topics is they're doorways to huge discussions, which is when you say, how about improve collaborate? So behind the word collaborate are a ton of topics, and I'll just pick a couple that are surprising. So the Heart of Agile is not a process. It's not a framework.
Right.
Literally 4 words. It's no more. My friend, Sole Pinter, Argentinian now living in Belgium, we were looking for a metaphor that doesn't trigger the process reaction in people, right? And she said it's like a compass, right? You don't go around all 4 points of the compass. You'll go to a circle, right? You say, I'm trying to go there. Which direction now off the compass will get me more in my desired direction? So of these 4 words, you say, do I want to put more energy on the collaborate side now, or are we to get to where we want? Do we need to beef up the deliver part now? Is it time to stop and reflect, right? So you choose a word to put your energy on for a time being, right? So these are directions of conversations. Now, if we open up the collaborate one and say, hey, we want to improve the quality of collaboration in an organization, guess what the first topic you have to pick up is? Trust. Then you have to pick up culture. Then you have to pick up rewards. So we're way out of process territory here, right? We're in conversations. And I go into organizations, the first thing I talk about is executive bonuses. In big orgs, they often put executive bonuses in conflict, like you're in charge of quality, you're in charge of quantity. They can't collaborate. They got $1 million bonuses riding on the line for not collaborating. So the first thing I talk to with exec team is executive compensation.
Right. So the reward systems drive behaviors, right?
What?
The reward system is driving behaviors.
Totally. But you have to follow it all the way down to the annual employee evaluation. If collaboration is not one of the top 2 things they're evaluated on, they're not going to do it.
Right.
Even if it's number 3, it's too far down.
Ooh, that's hard hitting.
Yeah.
You hit me hard.
It's not processed. Like if you say we just want to improve, it's just a topic. How to improve collaboration? Trust, fear, rewards, turf, ambition. They're there.
Oh,
ego.
Man.
What about ego?
It's all in there, man. It's all in there.
It's in there.
You can explain most corporate dysfunctions just off of greed and fear and ambition. And that'll diagnose almost any corporate story you ever hear.
Oh, yeah.
Now, having said that, in the Shu Ha Ri realm, I did a research paper back, 15 years ago about what increases the quality of collaboration on a minute by minute basis. On a minute by minute. I've never seen a book on this. I wrote an article. I did it kind of for fun, and I don't have them here with me. They're in my other room. But we boiled it down, the article, to about 16 cards that we sell, collaboration cards, and it's things you do that increase collaboration. Exactly. For instance, recognize other people, right? You're in a meeting, you're in a session, you call their name, you say, nice idea. You actually increase the inclination to collaborate right there, right?
Hey, you mentioned names. How important are names in all this? Just knowing each other's names.
Yeah, it's you're all on your. So here's my model of collaboration. So you have people sitting in a circle, and somebody has an idea and they want to speak. What goes through their mind at some level, right? What goes through their mind at some point is to say, "Hey, everybody, what I have to say is more important than what all of you have to say. You all have to shut up and listen to me." Now, that's a big chunk of ego, and a lot of people don't have that, right? Some people do; they don't have a problem, but most people don't. So you have a huge amount of fear at that moment for offering an idea. So the first two elements of there's like five suits in the cards. Three of them are all around getting a person to feel like they can speak. So recognize others, lift others, everything, compliment, remember the name, all of the things that make a person feel more important. If you adopt their idea, boom, they get points, right? If they say something, you say, good idea, let's do that, boom, right? They're braver. We're after bravery here, right? The second one is safety. Like if people are pounding on each other, criticizing each other, they're not going to speak. They just like everybody like that. So you have to create safety. There's different techniques, moves you do for safety. Mm-hmm. And then internally, people have to be encouraged, like find your center, raise your own sense of power, right? Go inside and make yourself braver, right? And then you've got energy levels, like what's the posture like? Sitting forward, being attentive, right? Adding humor, occasionally a little challenge, right? You're watching the energy level in the room, right? And then the final one is making progress. Like if you make a decision, you actually increase collaboration for the fact of having a small success. Right? If you get back from diversion, you know how everybody's like, you got sidetracked and someone says, everybody, let's get back on track. You actually increase the collaboration at that moment. So we have about 16 of these cards. So there are these micro moves that when you learn them, it's a vocabulary for the team. And the way you use them is like a team could take a card and say, this is our theme for the next week. Just everybody walk around and look for it. Just look for it.
Yeah. So we use those as behavioral markers. And because what you just identified are visible behaviors that you can almost see, when you're engaging.
Absolutely.
We don't coach to them, and there's a danger in coaching to them because we just don't hand out a bunch of like, here's a markers, go do it, because everybody will rate themselves as saying, that's what we're doing already. So they have to go back to the experiential learning, the play learning to experience that first, and then we build that up in there. So those behaviors of like psychological safety, removing fear in the organization, asking probing questions, inviting participation. These are all extremely valuable things. And you said you wrote this 15 years ago. Is that right?
Yeah, about 2008, something like that.
So you're about 8 years ahead of the curve, right? That, where we are today. And today we know a lot about psychological safety. It's kind of, I don't know, people are kind of twisting it now to mean many, many things. But Correct. What you just captured is already known. Right. So what else do you have for us on developing that?
I wanted to ask you about what you were just kind of bring it back a little bit to what you said about where there's those very clear, massive walls between, you were mentioning executive benefits. How do you crack those silos? Because I've lived in those structures where one will not talk to the other at all, and literally nothing gets done, and they might as well be on another planet, let alone be,
The only thing I've seen is there has to be team-based rewards. Yep. They all get the same bonus, right? So if they want the bonus, they help the other person. That's the only thing I've ever seen. We got about 4 minutes.
How vulnerable do you think those kind of companies are that build those silos that are impenetrable?
The story about I don't have to be faster than the bear. I only have to run faster than you.
Yeah.
I tell that,
That's
like I go into like any company, bank, insurance company, and they go, we can't do this. I go, well, until Amazon and Google get in the picture, you're actually safe because your competitors are just as slow as you are.
Yeah, that's right. So, hey, Alistair, I know only have a few minutes left with you today. Is there anything that, any questions that you want to ask to us or of us, or anything else you want to explore in the last few minutes?
No, I just love this, OODA. You know what would be a delight for me is what's your current thinking, current conversations around OODA? Because everything I know is, whatever, a book I read 15 years ago about Boyd, 20 years
Yeah.
before that. Sort of what's the current conversation in the OODA world, in your world?
I'll take that one. So
yeah.
what we're looking at now is connecting it to reality. This is kind of fun.
Give me like what the current state is in your mind, like where you're working.
Yeah, so psychedelic assisted therapy, we just had a couple conversations with some neuroscientists on the OODA loop. So the way we perceive the world can be explained through John Boyd's OODA loop, right? Our eyes send sensory signals to some part of our brain. Our orientation makes predictions of that. And out of that, we get some into Bayesian inference, predictive processing, and we create some reality of the world from inside or top down, inside out. That's one aspect of it. We're also getting into active inference, which is really advanced thinking with the free energy principles, some more ideas that can be applied to AI as well. And then we're getting into some of the basic stuff like separating decisions from outcomes when we're talking about the OODA loop, as far as applying it to the complex domain, thinking like the Cynefin framework. So there's that aspect of it. There's a lot more we can dive into as well. I'll turn it over to Mark to
my tack. I came out of the asset management world for almost 20 years when I got out of the Marine Corps, and the complexities and the volatility of the asset management world. I found that the warfighting concepts that I had learned in the Marine Corps were very applicable, specifically to Boyd, and that's how I got into the exploration. My master's degree is in economics, and my interest was specifically in the Austrian school, centering around Friedrich Hayek, who was a Nobel laureate from 1974, and really understanding how, knowledge is tacit, dispersed. We can't be certain. What I found was that I felt Boyd and Hayek and Ludwig von Mises and other Austrian economists, they really aligned on how they dealt with economic phenomena being the result of human decisions and actions, and also entrepreneurship, how it generates new information and how we compete, et cetera. So I would teach that out to people in the asset management world. But then I also ended up co-authoring an academic paper on it. We're bringing out a second version of that actually this week, and we're presenting it next month, on aligning Boyd with economics and explaining it that way, where orientation is understood first, and then OODA becomes the process of how the orientation functions, and then the intent behind what the entrepreneur is trying to do to create value for their clients is sort of the tie-in. But when I explain OODA to people that don't know anything about it, I always start with orientation, and I explain an iOS, like an internal operating system, who we are, what we think, what we believe, what our psychological state is, and then how we make sense of the world and how we process things. And I say that, an orientation is like a fingerprint. Everybody's unique, but we can align orientations and we can collaborate as teams, and we can compete together, and we can build trust together, cohesion together. At some point, our orientations have an alignment that we can harmonize and direct action together. And then I think people start to get it. And then, Ponch and I actually just spent Ponch and I finally met in person for the first time in December after we worked together. But we were in the Boyd archives, and I made a second trip a couple of weeks ago. And when you're getting into that stuff, we're realizing that his work is so far beyond OODA.
It's enormous. Yeah.
But what I really love about what you were saying earlier, you've got to start with those very simple words, because not everybody's going to get the depth and the scope of what he was doing. Because he's often very, as he's very easily dismissed. A lot of people dismiss him because he didn't have a PhD or he didn't, produce any academic work. But a good way to start is with those words.
Yeah.
And get people in. I really like that. I think that's
thanks, guys. That's helpful for me. And when you wrap this up, I'd love it if you get especially comments back from Marines. I don't spend time there. I do. I have done sessions with highly competitive people in the oil exploration industry, type A type people.
Oh yeah.
I love it. I love playing with them, and I love the competition myself, and I love setting them up to compete. And then I go, yeah, well, actually, there was a group. I set them a problem, and they were working, but it needed lateral thinking to solve.
Yeah.
They were just going straight for it. They were so aggressive. They were on it. And then second round, they're going, we're killing it. I go, you guys are like kindergartners. I got high school kids doing better than you. Yeah, I got so mad. They still didn't solve it because they were like forward thinking. But I love competition. Love to hear from any of your Marine people.
Well, I'd love to get you in a connection with some of them and some of the concepts because of John Boyd, and I always attribute to the Marines are a naval service and the ocean is pure chaos, and that's where the naval services I think have an advantage. But the Marines have also spent a lot of time in the East, so I think a lot of the Eastern concepts have transcended into the Marine way of thinking. And I think that when Boyd came to the Marines in the late 70s and started developing all of these concepts with the Marines in the 1980s, you would find now that the stereotype of, sort of meathead, jarhead, knuckle dragger, automaton, that's completely false.
Correct.
The Marine Corps is the most intellectual branch, constantly reading, constantly studying, constantly debating because they're trying to find other ways. So, back to your Shu Ha Ri, we're very serious and clear about the Shu. In the second phase and the third phase is where we really start to develop and come into our own. You can see behind me, it's no accident. I mean, the Marines threw a lot of gas on my my intellectual pursuits. So it's a really no.
It's time for me to roll out of here. Do you have any last comment or question or closing words or something?
No, it's wherever you look, you'll find John Boyd's OODA loop. You brought up the lean startup. The idea of that was actually influenced by John Boyd's OODA loop. Same with the customer development model. So it seems that anywhere we look, we're going to find a connection to it. And so it's inevitable. We got to.
It is. He coded it. It's just how life's built. It's brilliant. And I was a little bit sad. It took me like so many years to figure out that. Yeah, it's sweet. So good for you guys.